Welcome in, everyone. I am the Crypto Bull God, and I'm going to call this the CBG podcast. In today's CBG podcast, I wanted to give a 1 year update on a lot of things that have transpired in my life since having my surgery, my surgery that I shared with everyone earlier in the year, and wanted to provide some helpful information, some educational, some knowledge, all right? Because the whole point, you got to ask yourself, why am I actually doing this, right? The reason that I'm choosing to do this is because when you publish something on YouTube, okay, it stays out there indefinitely, unless if I decide to take it down, all right? And I realize that even if this video reaches one person, where it has an impact, then I feel like I have truly carried it forward, as I often say, to carry things forward. We all know, let's face it, we all know someone in our life, whether it's a family member, whether it's a friend. We all know someone that has unfortunately been diagnosed with cancer, right? There's all sorts of different types of cancer out there. In my case, as a refresher here, I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. And so after a few biopsies, because I wasn't willing to accept results, it was all but confirmed. They don't know until they actually do the surgery, but it was all but confirmed that, I had a tumor that was no bueno, and it was definitely cancerous, right, on the right side of my thyroid. And what was further discovered from that was that the cancer had actually spread to some lymph nodes on the side of my neck, which is why you can see if you're very close up, which I will say anyone who unfortunately is going, if you know someone or you're going through something similar in this case, actually specific to thyroid cancer, first off, Clayman Institute. Shout out to Clayman Institute. They're located in Tampa. Phenomenal job. Best hospital I've ever been a part of. Dr. Clayman himself, Dr. Roy. There are so many people at that hospital that I owe a debt of gratitude to, that did a tremendous job in caring for me. But they did a phenomenal job when they had cut my neck to take out the thyroid and do a partial neck, I think it's called a partial neck disectomy, to remove lymph nodes here where the cancer had spread. You really have to get close up here to see any sort of scar. I mean, my scar has healed extremely well. That's something I really don't think of. Now, I will say one thing that I do kind of need to figure out is one thing I have noticed a year out from my surgery is I still get kind of a weird sensation on the right side of my neck. As you might recall, I did run into some post-surgical complications. So I don't know if it's attributable to that or what, but it's very hard to describe, but it's almost like it's just an odd sensation sometimes. It's almost like a pooling feeling. So still something I'm trying to work through. It isn't overly, it doesn't have me really super concerned, and it's not something that's a huge hindrance, but it's something that I notice that side of my neck definitely feels different at times. But let's kind of take a step back. I don't want to rehash everything I did in my first live stream when I shared all this information with you. I actually also came out in March and did a podcast. If you haven't checked it out, you can search my videos for it. I think it was back in March of this year. I did a podcast on depression, and some of that was tied into a lot of the things that I was going through with the hormonal imbalances that I had from the thyroid surgery and getting on the right medication. So I would be remiss if I didn't at least hit on some of the things there, but certainly I'm not going to regurgitate the same information. One of the most important things that I can share with you if you're going through anything similar is that first off, it's okay to take some time to be angry or be frustrated by your situation. You're human, and it's not, especially if you're a healthy individual, I can say, or if you're young, in my case, it's not easy to hear that you have cancer, no matter what type of cancer it is. It's it's a pretty, it's a big shock to the system. Okay, and I'm an extremely positive person. I'm extremely positive. I always try to take things in life, no matter how challenging they are, and try to take some positivity out of it, because I do feel that whatever circumstances you are confronted in life, no matter how difficult they are, you have a choice. You have a choice in terms of how you choose to respond to it. Life goes on, right? Life goes on. How you choose to confront and work through something is pivotal, I think, to your happiness and your just overall well-being. Okay, but it's perfectly normal to take some time to be angry, to be frustrated, to just be confused, right? But at some point, you got to get strong, and you gotta, as I've been saying in the crypto market lately, you gotta buckle up, Buttercup, because you're gonna have to confront what's going on in your life. Okay, and one of the best things that I can encourage you to do, and something that I've been actively doing with my endocrinologist, is being a partner with your healthcare provider. So in my case, again, because I've had my thyroid removed and I've had to be put essentially on medication to replace the hormones that the thyroid produces, I need to work with an endocrinologist in getting quarterly, roughly every 3 months at the moment. I'm sure once we get to a point after a year or two, I think we'll be doing blood work maybe twice a year. But for now, it's every 3 months. And it's very critical that you find a good endocrinologist, someone who is a really good active listener and hears you out on your needs and your concerns, and someone who also wants to be a partner in your healthcare. I can't stress this enough. You need to take it upon yourself to educate yourself. You're not a doctor. This isn't about going on WebMD and trying to figure everything out. But it is playing an active role to learn as much as you can so that you can ask questions and better understand what's going on and what the right course of action is, right? There are certain personal things that, I communicated to my endocrinologist, and had I not taken an active role and communicated those things, he wouldn't have known, okay? So it's so critical that you not just sit back and say, I'm gonna let the doctors do their work, or the doctor do their work, and they know what they're doing, and that's what I'm gonna trust in. Now you gotta play an active role. You have to play an active role, and getting that blood work is extremely important. So in my case, there's a few different blood markers that are very important to understand two things. One, if my thyroid medication is being absorbed properly and is at the right dosage level to support my metabolism, energy levels, all that stuff. And also there's a marker. It's called thyroglobulin. And that thyroglobulin is a marker, essentially. It's a tumor marker. You want that marker to be really low. And so even though, let's take a step back for a moment. Even though in my case, you can get a hemithyroidectomy, okay, in which case you have half your thyroid removed. Typically, the half the thyroid functions just as a full thyroid would. You won't need any thyroid medication. Or you get a full thyroidectomy. Well, even in the case, I went to an awesome surgical center, Clayman. Even though I had two extremely experienced surgeons, working to meticulously, it was like a 3.5 hour surgery, to meticulously remove the thyroid and the lymph nodes here. There's also lymph nodes behind the thyroid they had to remove, because that's the first place it spreads. It goes to the lymph nodes behind the thyroid, and then it can spread to the left or right side. But in any event, no matter how good the surgeon is, okay, there's still little itty bitty pieces of the tissue, microscopic pieces of tissue that are still there, right? So when you get your blood work for the first time after your surgery, the first couple times, you might notice your thyroid globulin level should be much lower, because you've removed like 99%, think of it this way, 99% of the cancer. but it's still a little elevated. That thyroglobulin is still a little elevated, which brings me to my next point. One of the most important things that your doctor, if you're diagnosed with thyroid cancer and you get your thyroid removed, what they're going to want to do, based on the severity of the cancer that was in your body, they're going to want to dose you with something called a radioactive iodine pill, and they're going to want to do a body scan. So let's talk about that for a moment. It's nothing to be alarmed about. It's nothing to be scared about. It's a very simple procedure. You literally go to a facility, you swallow a pill, it's radioactive. Okay, so there are certain precautions you have to take. I remember when you flush the toilet, you got to flush the toilet twice. For just like a couple days, you also use plastic utensils, just dispose of them. And you have to self-isolate for like a couple days, 2 days or 3 days, whatever the case is. Which is not a problem for me because I live by myself. So, but in any event, what is the purpose of that radioactive iodine pill? Well, the radioactive iodine pill, the whole purpose is when you swallow it, think of it this way. The pill is released and it gravitates towards and attacks any remaining cancer cells, that 1% microscopic amount of cancer cells that are just left over by a little bit of tissue, right, that we can't see with the human eye during surgery, and it kills it, right? And then what they do, after you've taken your radioactive iodine pill, 1 week later, they will schedule you for something called a body scan. It's an extremely expensive procedure. So in all this, I can say this is the first time I was happy I had insurance, because when you actually look at the cost of these things, holy hell. But anyway, you get a body scan, and the body scan is just a very thorough scan of your entire body for two things. One, we want to make sure that radioactive iodine pill killed all the remaining cancer cells. Right? Now, your blood work, the thyroglobulin, is going to reveal that as well. That should come way down. Okay? Way down, which in my case it did. But the other thing that the body scan confirms is, things, there's always, I always say on my All in the Charts live stream, there are no certainties in life. Besides living and dying, there's only probabilities. So while the probability is extremely small, and it's extremely small, and I don't want to scare you, it's extremely small, very small, there is a probability that some cancer could have spread to your bones, anywhere in your body, right? So the body scan is going to get us comfortable with the idea that you are 100% cancer-free. You are good to go, okay? There's always a risk down the line, which I've been made aware of. This is why you do regular blood work. Something could pop up, right? Not thinking about that too much, because first off, the risks are very low, and second off, it doesn't do me any good to be concerned about that. But yeah, so you take a radioactive iodine pill, it kills off any remaining cancer cells. They do a total body scan, they make sure you're cancer-free. In my case, everything went through very successfully, which is great. One of the things to keep in mind, if you know someone or you yourself are going through a thyroid cancer diagnosis, it's much more common in women. And unfortunately for men, one of the things that is worse for men is that it tends to be more aggressive. So I don't know when. I had no symptoms of having thyroid cancer. I didn't have a lump in my throat. I didn't, I wasn't feeling off. I mean, I felt completely normal. Ask anyone who saw me in the gym. I was like a fucking animal. You wouldn't have known. I didn't know. It came up incidentally. By the way, that's typically how these diagnoses come up. It's through incidental body imaging, scanning, testing. I was in the hospital for something completely unrelated. I had strep. I don't know, I told you this just as a refresher. I had strep throat, which I never get. I had abscesses, which are basically pus pockets that develop on your tonsils, which I had both my tonsils. It was cutting off my airway, which was a fun time, let me tell you. That was a hell of a year. That was 2023. I think the first time actually, no, was that 2022 or 2023? No, I think it was 2023. So what happened was, no, it was 2022 and 23. That's another story. I don't want to go into. Anyway, 2023, it was confirmed. They did some imaging to confirm the abscesses. They found the nodule on my thyroid. They then did an ultrasound and said, yeah, you better get a biopsy on that. So it was incidental. I could have gone years undiagnosed with this. And unfortunately for men, where I was going with this is, it's unfortunate for anyone who's diagnosed with this. But with men, it tends to be a lot more aggressive. So you really got to act on it. But anyway, that covers the body scan. That covers the radioactive iodine treatment. Then it's getting on the right medications and the right medication level. So for my thyroid replacement hormones, I'm on a drug that I take daily, 2 drugs, Tyrosint. So I take 250 milligrams of Tyrosint every day. And I take 5 micrograms of liothyronine. Okay, these are all fun things to pronounce. Liothyronine, okay? And I forget the exact reason that I need that 5 micrograms. It has something to do, it's not absorption, but basically that with the Tyrosint helps all the hormones work better, you know? Now, the one thing that you do have to adjust to when you get on thyroid medication is your interaction with taking that medicine in relation to when you eat or drink, and taking other vitamins and pills. So typically the guidance is, and a lot of people like to take it in the morning. If you get up first thing in the morning and you take it, you gotta wait at least 45 minutes before you even have coffee, okay? And you've got to wait another several hours. I think it's like 4 hours or 3.5 hours before you can take any other medications, anything. I'm talking even ibuprofen, just you don't take any pills. You let that absorb in your body. Now you can, after 45 minutes, not only drink coffee, you can eat as well. You can eat at that point. So it's not like you have to wait 4 hours to eat. For me, waking up and waiting 45 minutes to have coffee is not fucking happening. It's only the people who are closest to me in my life that know this. You don't want to talk to me first thing in the morning. Okay, now, I consider myself a morning person because I love to get up early. I love to get a real early start to the day, feel accomplished, get something done at work, get something done in charting, get to the gym, of course. I love getting an early start to the day, but if you try to engage with me first thing in the morning, probably not a good idea. It's not going to end up well for you. So coffee helps with that for me. So it's really not an option for me to get up and wait 45 minutes. So what I do is I actually do the best I can to cut off my eating dinner around 6 to 6:30. And then I'll take my thyroid medication 3 hours later. So 3 hours after I've eaten. The doctor, I believe, has told me I could do 2 hours. The whole idea, but I opt for 3 hours just based on some guidance that I've read online. The whole idea is you need an empty stomach so that when you take the medication, your body isn't focused on digesting food. It's focused on absorbing and digesting that medication so that it works properly at a 100% rate throughout your body, right? So that's what I do. And then on nights, I would say that works for 90% of evenings for me. Now, there are occasions, right, where it's not going to work out well. Maybe you're going out on a date. Maybe you and your wife are going to go out and you're going to have dinner and you're not done eating until 8 o'clock. In that case, for me, I probably drink too much water before bed, so I wake up naturally anyway. But in those cases, I'll set my alarm for 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. It goes off, turn it off, take the medication, just go back to bed. So I will do that as well. But it's worked well. I mean, my blood work shows whatever I'm doing, as I've communicated to you, it's working well. It took a little while. If you're going through this, please be patient. It's going to take a little bit of time until your endocrinologist gets you on the right dosage level. So it's very important. You don't want to just look at the numbers, right? You're going to look at your TSH, you're going to look at your T3, you're going to look at your T4. Those are the three big ones for thyroid hormone, even though technically TSH, which is thyroid stimulating hormone, is a hormone produced by the pituitary gland in support of your thyroid. But in any event, those are the three markers you're going to look at. It's also important to communicate to your endocrinologist how you feel. Your blood work, it's fair to say, your blood work can say one thing, and you might be feeling differently. And this is where communication is very important, and a doctor who's going to listen to you is very important. There is no one level for each of those that's going to be perfect for every single person. We're not cookie. God did not make us in a cookie cutter fashion. We're all different, right? So different levels work for different people, but there's a reasonable range. You got to be at least within the range, right? So just have some patience, work with your endocrinologist. And I remember when my levels were like way off and my energy levels should have been way down, I remember my endocrinologist commenting to me that he was astounded that I had the energy levels that I had to be able to still go to the gym every day. So sometimes where there's a will, there's a way. You can just mentally get through, push yourself through things. But I will say this. First off, everybody's body responds differently to this whole process. If you think about it, you're removing an organ from your body that God put into your body for a purpose. It just wasn't a thrilling idea to even think of going in and taking something out that God put there for a purpose. And one of the things that you realize going through this is just how convoluted and complicated and interconnected the thyroid is with like all your hormones. I got to tell you, it's something you never think about unless you get your thyroid removed. Now, where I'm going with this is, I guess I should have spoken to this when I did my body scan. So this is going to hit on the importance of taking your medication. So when you get your body scan, there's something they can inject you with before the body scan, or before you take your radioactive iodine pill. There's something they can inject you with, I believe, to temporarily lower all of your TSH, your T3, your T4 to levels they shouldn't be at, but they need, for that radioactive iodine pill, I forget the specifics why, but for that radioactive iodine pill to be effective, they need all those levels to be very low. So they can inject you with something where it temporarily lowers it, and then, once you go back on your medication, they have you go off your medication for like a day or two, you'll quickly get back up. In my case, there was some issue with scheduling and getting in, and I forget the exact reason, but I was given options, and I just said, he gave me the option, well, you could go off your thyroid medication for 2 weeks. You're probably going to feel like crap, but, we'll do some blood work and make sure your levels are as low as they need to be prior to taking the radioactive iodine pill. Well, let me tell you, at the time I went off the medication, this delves into that March video that I put out on depression. Again, I don't want to beat a dead horse. I don't want to rehash that podcast. Part of me doesn't even like to think back to that time, to be honest with you. You can go and listen to the podcast if you want, but it was a rough time. You don't realize if your body, if chemically there's an imbalance in your system, you have no idea, unless you've gone through something like that, exactly what it does to your mood and your outlook on life. I am about as positive a person as you will find. Okay? You give me a shitty circumstance, I'm going to find some positive twist on it. That's just how I've always been. I felt extremely depressed, and I don't use that word lightly. I felt extremely depressed. It impacted my relationships around me. And I'll tell you another story. Unfortunately, through this process, and I'll take a positive away from this. Unfortunately, through this process, I also lost a friendship. I had a friend, I'm not going to go into the entire story. I think he was still butthurt over something else that I thought we forgave each other for, that he did, I did, whatever. But whatever the case is, he was not compassionate, he was not empathetic, and he, no matter how I attempted to explain to him that my energy levels were so low, and it was hard for me to get going in the morning. Mornings were brutal. When I went off my thyroid medication, and even during periods where I was trying to get it to the right level, man, getting up in the morning, it was fucking horrendous. And this is, again, why it is so important that if you're going through this, you have to follow. Look, there are worse things that could happen to you in your life than being on daily medication. Yes, it's a pain in the ass. Honestly, the worst pain in the ass is dealing with getting refills. For whatever reason, doing all of that between my healthcare provider and CVS, it's been fucking stressful at times, to be honest with you. That's the worst part. But the reality is there are worse things that could happen to you in life, and besides being on a daily medication. So what I'm sharing with you stresses the importance that you need to obey the guidelines with that medication, not just taking the medication, empty stomach, no drugs afterwards, waiting to eat, drink coffee, 45 minutes after taking it. You have to follow those things so that it gets absorbed in your system. Well, anyway, I had, a former friend who was not empathetic, who was not understanding, felt I was making excuses. No matter how I tried to explain it to him, he just did not comprehend that I literally physically could not move around at the moment like I used to. And he wanted to get together, and so there was a whole blow up, and basically I told him to fuck off unless if he was going to apologize, because I mean, my stress levels and depression levels were already at an all-time high. So I had zero tolerance for someone acting like a complete asshole, quite frankly. And he never did. He's an extremely stubborn individual, very strong personality, even stronger than my own, in my opinion. And so, unfortunately, we parted ways. And one of the things that one of the positives, again, trying to take a positive away from this, is when you go through something in your life that is extremely challenging and it really tests you in many ways, you really want to know that you have people supporting you and around you that are empathetic, that are understanding. They don't need to. It's very important if you're not the person going through it and you're the person attempting to be supportive. This message goes equally to both, whatever side you're on here. You have to understand there are some things in life that you're not going to be able to relate to. You're not going to be able to fully understand, and that's okay. The question is, do you have love for that individual to be empathetic, to try to understand, be empathetic, and be compassionate? I think going through what I went through between, just all the stuff that I went through, it really taught me the importance of being surrounded by people who truly are truly compassionate, And so, as sad as it is on the one hand to think I lost a friendship over it, on the other hand, I feel that I'm stronger moving forward, not having someone in my life who is that way. The other thing that was challenging going through being off that medication at the time, I felt like I was getting hit with a lot of things. For the first time in my 20-year career, I was reporting to someone who was extremely toxic, and it really caused me to physically get sick at work, and it was a rough situation. So I changed jobs, thankfully. I'm in a much better situation, but that was a horrendous situation as well. So I just can't stress enough that if you're going through this, the importance of being on medication, being on the medication and obeying the guidelines. Turning a little bit more to a positive spin here. I'm 1 year later. We're in December of 2024 here. My surgery was November 6th of 2023. And I got to tell you, for the most part, there's still some things I'm working through. But for the most part, I really do feel like myself. Especially being a weightlifter, a bodybuilder. Again, going through the surgery, listen to the guidelines. A couple weeks out of the gym is not the end of the world, okay? It really isn't. I'm a living testament to that. I was right back in the gym when I was allowed to fully lift, and I was still doing all my deadlifts and back squats at weights very close to what I was doing before surgery. So, but it is interesting. It was interesting not being able to train the way I always knew for my entire life. And actually, when I would put on shorts, because the other thing is I had to be put on a non-fat diet, which I touched on in the very first video. But it was interesting getting as slender as I got. My shorts that right now fit me pretty tight, they were like loose on me. It was an interesting experience to go to, but you recoup that stuff in no time. So you just have to be patient. And I can tell you a year later that for the most part, I'd say I'm 90%, I think, back to who I was before the surgery. There are still some things I'm kind of working through. Some of it I don't know is still hormonal that I'm trying to figure out. Some of it is the best way I can articulate it to you, and it's just a little frustrating, and it's the one frustrating aspect. And this is why it's important to have good communication with your endocrinologist. There's still some part of me that who I was before surgery and who I was after surgery are a little bit different. In the way that I don't feel the best way I can describe it is I don't feel as charismatic now that I was then. And the thing that I'm still trying to sort through is how much of that is hormonal. I'm still trying to figure out something there. Or how much of it is just going through the real world, just the real life experience of having a cancer diagnosis, having the surgery, going through what I went through, and in some ways it just changes you. It really does. I don't want to say it humbles you, because I've always considered myself a humble person, but it in many ways, what is the word I'm looking for? In many ways, it grounds you on some things, and not puts things in perspectives, but grounds you in certain ways. So I'm still trying to work through that, because in some ways I very much feel like myself. In many ways, I feel exactly like myself. And in some ways, I don't know, I still feel a little different. So I'm still trying to figure some of that out. But the good news is, again, if you're going through something like this right now, as difficult as it seems, there is absolutely a light at the end of the tunnel. You can persevere and push through it. Surround yourself with the right people. Get a great endocrinologist. Educate yourself. Be a partner in healthcare, and just be patient. Be patient and be positive. Something else that I wanted to hit on, I almost forgot to mention actually. One of the other positive things that I took away from going through this entire experience is, if you were to look at my lifestyle before my surgery, it's inarguable that I lived a healthy lifestyle. I eat well, exercise all the time. But one thing I was very honest with myself about, and again, some of this, the reason I self-reflected on my nutrition was because, hey, I had to stop weight training, and I saw my weight dipping a little bit. I was on a fat-free diet, and I really wanted to get my nutrition in order so that when I got back to the gym, I was fucking full speed ahead, not missing a beat, right? And it's all the work that you do. People don't realize this. Your successes in the gym are largely attributable to the care you take outside of the gym. And so my nutrition, I felt, was on point. Not on point, but my nutrition was good. Although something I started doing through this whole process was I started tracking macros. So I've never tracked macros in my life, and I've actually found it to be extremely beneficial. But the other thing that I had an honest conversation with myself about was my alcohol intake. So it wasn't, for me before my surgery, it wasn't so much that I would go out on the weekends and just go batshit crazy. So it wasn't the amount within a single day, it was more the frequency. It was Monday, hey, I'm going to have an old fashioned. And then Wednesday rolls around, I'm feeling a dirty martini. Friday, well, I mean, it's fucking Friday. You're going to drink on Friday, right? Pop open a bottle of wine and drink half of that. And then Saturday, of course, I'm going to meet up with someone and go out for drinks. So when I took a look at my alcohol intake, it didn't, my alcohol intake did not parallel every other aspect of my life that I was living, nutrition and gym. And so one of the things that I've done for myself is I have significantly cut back alcohol intake. It's been good. It's been really good. Especially the older you get in life, what you realize, and if we're all being honest with ourselves here, what is alcohol? I mean, what is it at the end of the day? It's a toxic. It's a toxin, okay? So you're putting toxic materials, substances into your body. That's what you're doing when you're ingesting alcohol. Now, am I saying to you that I've given up alcohol completely? No, I really enjoy wine. Every now and then I'll have some whiskey or tequila, but the frequency and amount has been scaled back, a material amount. And I'm very thankful that I took it upon myself to be honest with myself about that. And then, again, nutrition, I prioritized. I tracked my macros just to get a good sense of what my protein, fat, and carbohydrate intake are. Again, it's one of those things that I never imagined myself doing, but much like your finances, if you want to be financially successful, don't you have to do the due diligence to actually track your finances and see how your investment portfolio is performing? If I want to go into the gym, and it's very important to me it's just in my DNA. It's just who I am. You don't need to understand it. I am a big weightlifter. I love weightlifting. Like if I could, I feel like I would just live in the gym. Okay. If I want that aspect of my life, which is the most passionate aspect of my life, if I want that to be at peak performance, don't I have to have the nutrition that's going to support that peak performance? So tracking macros makes a lot of sense. And the other thing that gets underrated, especially I know people that are younger in their 20s, people in college often joke about sleep and pulling all-nighters for exams and finals and things. Hey, when you're 18 or 20 or 22, you can get away with certain shit. But one of the other things that I learned through this process is the importance of sleep. Like, we all know it, but I got to tell you, especially when your body is craving for it and it's not at its peak condition because you're going through something like this, making sure that you're going to bed roughly at the same time and waking up roughly at the same time in the morning is extremely important. Extremely important. I feel so much better. These past 2 days, today and yesterday in particular, I easily got 7 hours of sleep. I think last night I got more than 8 hours of sleep. But if I'm getting between 7 to 8, 7's sort of my minimum for me. Everybody's body is different. But as long as I'm getting 7 hours of sleep, I'm ready to fucking rock and roll the next day. If I'm starting to dip under 7 hours, I feel it the next day, right? So really prioritizing your sleep, especially if you're going through a thyroidectomy and you're being put on thyroid hormone medication, getting adequate sleep is so critical. It also helps your body, especially in the early stages, when you've had that surgery. Getting enough sleep allows your body to repair itself. You should read up if you haven't on the benefits, just all the numerous physical and mental benefits of getting a lot of sleep. So it's something I've prioritized for myself. I try to get to bed at roughly the same time every night. I go to bed pretty early and I wake up pretty early. Lately, I would say on average, I'm trying to fall asleep in the 9 o'clock range, and then I wake up in the 5 o'clock range. I've kind of put off getting off before. I used to get up some mornings before 5, but it's been 5, 5:15, 5:30. Some of it depending on when I'm falling asleep the night before. So really trying to get that good 7 to 8 hours of sleep. If I can fall asleep before 10 o'clock, I am good to go. I'm trying to think of anything else to share. Let's see who's in the live stream here. Juan, you're always the first one on the live streams. Very good to see you, my friend. I love this. Logical move. I can't like your comment, but I really appreciate what you're sharing there. Very happy to hear that your sister survived that diagnosis at such a young age. Rashid, man, it's always good to see you. When the hell are you coming back down to South Florida? Thank you, my friend. Let's fucking go indeed. Drop me actually, you might have dropped me a DM. I haven't gotten back to you yet. I'm so bad with DMs on X. Please forgive me. It's not you. It's me. I'm horrible with DMs. Evan, man, I was expecting to see you when XRP had pumped up to 274. Where you been at, brother? Good to see you. Crypto to the moon indeed. Totally agree on sleep. Makes or breaks. Yeah, it's hey, spell check your. It's YOU''RE. Sorry. It's like nails on chalkboard to me. Yeah, and it's look, sleep is a challenge for, I think prioritizing sleep is especially a challenge for people who have extremely busy lifestyles, right? It could be maybe a business owner. It could be a father and a mother, husband and wife, with kids, especially if you have more than one kid. Prioritizing sleep is definitely a challenge. You're going through school, and like when I was going through my academic process, and I was studying for my actuarial exams. Man, those FSA exams were fucking brutal. When I was studying for those actuarial exams, like, in order for me to study for the exams, still be working, go to the gym, and have a relationship, if I was in one, which most of the time I was getting like 5 hours of sleep. But and there were many mornings I felt like a zombie, but still don't know how I got through that time in my life. It's brutal to look back on. But I got to tell you, especially the older I've gotten in life, if you want to de-accelerate aging, if you want to feel better, if you want better recovery from the gym, you want to be mentally focused, if you have injuries, they'll heal better, you got to get sleep. And something else I would share with you that I just thought of, for something to be aware of as you're going through this process, if you've been diagnosed with thyroid cancer, especially if you're taking off medication for that radioactive iodine pill, but as you're starting to get to the right dosage level, when your hormones are way off and they're very low, your skin can take a hit. You might not think about that, but I remember there was one day in particular I saw someone in the gym I hadn't seen forever, and they wanted to get like a selfie with me. And this was at prime time when I was off my thyroid medication, and I had these, like, water retention can be bad, so you really got to be cognizant of salty foods. I remember I had these big bags under my eyes, and I was so self-conscious about it. I was like, Christ, I look like I'm 10 years older. I was like, I really don't want to get a selfie with this person. So it's something to be cognizant of. But again, once you get on the right level of thyroid medication, that'll go away. I think my skin looks pretty good. So all that goes away. But it's at least something to be very cognizant of. I'm trying to think if there's really anything else. I don't think there's really anything else. Feel free, if you watch this live or you watch this in syndication, if you have any questions for me, feel free to drop them in the comments once this video publishes. I will do my, especially for videos like this, I'll prioritize getting back to people. Even if you're finding this video 5 years from now, I can't imagine much will change in 5 years. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. I know what it's like to go through something that can be a little intimidating. So here is a resource. I'm not an expert, definitely not an expert, never will be. But I'm somebody who went through this process and can certainly help in answering some questions and be an educational resource. So, all right, everybody, until next time, let's all spread awareness and carry the education forward. Thank you so much for joining me this evening.